Hey guys, it is Carl Brown from GL365.com. Man, I have been avoiding this for years. Obviously, we're going to do Dogs today by Pink Floyd. Why have I been avoiding it? Because it's over 17 minutes long. It's got 5 guitar solos in it, and it takes some time to get this done. But I'm finally going to get it over with. I love the song. I love Pink Floyd, my favorite bands of all time. David Gilmour, my favorite players of all time. It's just, it's kind of a beast to tackle. It's also in a kind of an unorthodox tuning as well. So anyway, we're going to tackle the whole thing today. So buckle up. Hopefully you guys will stick around with me. Grab some coffee. We got some work to do. Now, before I get into it, please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Ring the notification bell so you know it's a new video. You can like and comment. You can watch the videos. It really helps support me doing all this work to these huge transcriptions of these epic songs. So I will continue cranking them out if you just subscribe and watch them. All right, and if you really want to support what I do here on YouTube, best way to do it, click the link in the description. You'll see a link to my guitar academy. It's the GL365 Academy. My academy contains all my guitar courses, from complete beginner courses, more advanced courses on technique, improvisation, ear training, theory, guitar tone. You get full access to the entire academy with just one subscription across all app platforms like mobile, Apple, Android, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Apple TV, everything. It's everywhere. So one subscription takes care of it all. And I go live there every weekend with just Academy members. So we have kind of a live stream. It's fun. You can ask any questions you want every week, get them answered in real time. So hopefully you guys will come join me. I'll see you over there. So let's jump into this. So I'm going to start out here on the acoustic, and I'm going to pick up the Strat to teach the rest of the song. This song's in D standard. What that means is every string on the guitar is tuned down a whole step. So the song's in D minor, so it kind of makes everything easy. So you can just play an E minor chord. It's actually a D minor now. So what those notes actually are is the E is going to be tuned down to a D, so that low E string. Then the A string is tuned down to a G. The D string is tuned down to a C. The G string is tuned down to an F. B string tuned down to an A, and the high E string is also tuned down to a D. Put those notes in the description too, so hopefully you just have an electric tuner. You don't need to tune up to me or whatever. All right, so let's jump into this, the beginning of this. So we're gonna start here. Now when I call the chord names, I'm not gonna call this out as a D minor 9 chord, even though it is. I'm going to call it out as an E minor 9, just as if it was in standard tuning. All right, so that's just going to make us visually, if I play this chord, it's a D major. I'm not going to call it C major, even though it is, because we're tuned down a whole step. So it just helps you kind of pick it up. But you get your guitar tuned down a whole step, you'll be good to go. All right, so this first chord is going to start with it. It's basically an E minor chord, so you can just hold it to E minor like this, though. Kind of open E string, second fret on the A, second fret on the D, and open G. And then on the B string, you're going to play the 3rd fret. And then on the high E string, you're going to play the 2nd fret. So this is the minor 7, and this is the 9 on top. So that makes it a minor 9 chord. All right, so the next chord . All right, so what we want to do here is you can just play this 3rd fret there on the A, 3rd fret there on the D, open G, 1st fret on the B, open high E. So from there, all right. And then what we're going to do is we're going to move the note on the B string up to the 2nd fret there. And below that, you'll have the 4th fret there on the D string, 4th fret on the G, and then open high E string above it. So that was just 4 strings. And then you're going to take that shape and just move it down 1 fret. So we still have the open high E there, but now it's the first fret on the B, third fret on the G, third fret on the D. So those are the chords. This is the main progression of the song. So that's how you're going to see it played through the verses. Now, the very first time you hear it in the song, he adds a little variation in there over the last two chords. And that's this. Same thing over this one. So just what I'm doing there is you start with the normal chord there. So this is the third chord in the progression. On one of those up strokes, you're going to basically just, instead of just playing the second fret on the B string, you're also going to roll over and grab a little mini bar across the second fret of the high E as well. And then back. So and then go straight back to the previous chord with the open high E. So it's just kind of a little. So we have this. Hold it, and then do it again. And then do the same thing on the next chord. So when the first time you hear the progression, when there's no vocals, that's what's going on over those two chords. And then when the you got me crazy, he just goes straight chords and doesn't do that little move. So just straight through there. So that's when the vocals come, when the verse, the only time you hear that little thing is the very beginning of the song, and the rest of them, the chords are just played straight. So now, during the verse, as he plays this, over the last two chords, you're gonna hear kind of a power chord, electric guitar power chord. I'm gonna switch to electric guitar in a second. That's what you're hearing there. It's just a B power chord over this chord, and then over this one, I'm sorry. It's just a B flat power chord at the first fret of the A. So, all right, and then I'm gonna grab my Strat now, and just for convenience sake, I'm gonna just stick with it for the rest of the rest of the lesson, so I don't have to switch back and forth. But we will have some obvious parts that are played on acoustic guitar, and I'll let you know when that's happening. All right, so as the verses continue, we start having some electric guitar kind of overdubs over it. So what I'm gonna do here is, since this kind of progression happens a lot throughout the song, and as it develops, he'll start adding a little bit more in the electric guitar department over those acoustic chords. So the first time you hear it though, he's just kind of like, so all you're really doing is playing. You can just play the same chords that the acoustic's doing, right? But he's just kind of hanging out on the top three strings, kind of arpeggiating it for the first couple chords. So it's the open G, then the high E and the B, and then back to the G. And then kind of the same thing over the second chord. And then as he gets to the second two chords, he kind of more or less hits the lowest note, and then the high E string, and that's it. But as the song develops, he'll start doing more, especially over those last two chords. Just kind of picking across the chords, or sometimes just strumming it, just like that. So instead of just showing you, kind of going through each verse and showing you the little overdubs that are done, as you go, just basically develop it. You're playing the same chords, but you can just add some kind of sometimes just strumming them straight or picking across them. So on the first chord. Just kind of do what you want with it, over it, for the electric guitar overdubs. All right, so let's get to the first solo here. So David Gilmour has 5 solos total in this song, but really 4 different ones because one of them is repeated the same. So there's really 4 solos we have to learn here. And especially one very popular one has a lot of harmonized work in it, which I'm just gonna do the main line. We'll be doing all the little harmonies and overdubs because that's kind of like impossible. So this guitar is also tuned to D standard, which is kind of weird at some points in the solo, especially when he's bending way up high, because he actually recorded this song on a Telecaster, like a 1959 custom Telecaster, which only has 21 frets, like this guitar does, but it makes for some very awkward bends that would be a lot easier to do if the guitar was tuned to standard. And there is one note in the 4th solo that sounds like it's an open high E string. I know I'm kind of just trying to nitpick this thing and thinking that he might have recorded some of this in standard on electric guitar, but it wouldn't make a lot of sense to. Of course, most of the electric guitar parts are in D standard, so we're gonna learn the whole solo in D standard. And I'll point out the certain parts that, this would be easier if it was either a 22 fret guitar or in standard tuning. But we're gonna learn the whole thing in D standard, so you can stay in one tuning the whole time, and just, we'll have fun with it. All right, so let's check out the first solo. This comes in at the 1 minute and 50-second mark, and it happens over the verse chords. So here we go. So we're gonna start here with this slide into the 14th fret on the high E string. Then you're gonna play, which is just gonna be 15, back to 14, pick it again, pull off to 12, and pick that 12. And then we have, so it's a couple of muted hits there, quick little down up, and then went. So that's just 15 done a couple times there. So down to 14, down to 12, down to 14 on the G string, then 12, 11 on the G, and then 14 on the D. All right, so far away this. All right, next lick. So that's starting on the 14th fret there on the D, over to 11 on the G, pull off 12 to 11 on the G, and then over to 14 on the D again, back to that 11. And that's going to be pulling off from 14 to 12 on the D, slide down to 10. And then you're gonna quickly slide up 12 to 14 on the D, back to that 10. Then go over to the G string, 12th fret, pick that, bend it up a whole step, and then pick it twice without the bend. All right, next phrase. So that just goes back to the high E string, 15, 14, 12. And then do those three notes again. Kind of more staccato, and then 15, 12 on the B string. And then we have this. So that's a bend at the 14th fret on the G string. And then release. And you're gonna play 12, hammer on 14, pull off to 12. Slide down to 11. Okay. So we have this all together. So after you get this, you're gonna do this. And that's gonna be 11, hammer on 12, pull off to 11, slide down to 9, then back to 11. And then that's down to 8 on the G string, 9, 11, slide up to 11, over to 9 on the D. So this. All right, then we got this little ascending line, looks like this. So that, after you get that 9 on the D, just kind of go up to the 11th fret there. Go 11, still on the D string, 11, 13, 14. Then back to the 13, 13, 14, over to 11 on the G, to 13, 14, back to 13, then 14, 16, 18. So here it is. Then when you get to 18, half step bend, and then you're gonna play 17, pull off to 16, back to 17. And then that's a pull off from 15 to 14 on the G, down to 12. And then that, the next phrase. All right, so that's just gonna be a little chromatic line that starts at the 15th fret on the high E string. So 15, 14, 13, 12 on the high E and the B. Then when you get to the G string, there's a quick little half step bend there at the 14th fret on the G. And then you pick 14 without the bend. And then you pick 12. My note's dying out here, but we have 12. And then kind of bend up there. And hold that note, that whole set bend at the 12th fret. And then what you're gonna do is you're gonna do the bend again, but from the 11th fret. You're still gonna go to the same note. So now this is gonna be a step and a half. And then resolves back down to 11. So it goes. So it sounds like the same bend done twice, but it releases to different notes. So. All right, so that is it for the first solo. So after that first solo, we go back to the verse, which has the kind of the same kind of acoustic with the electric guitar, additional overdubs that we talked about on the guitar. And then it gets to the 3-minute and 33-second mark, and there's a quick little, it's really kind of a transition part that takes us to the second solo. So it just lasts for about 8 seconds, and it's just kind of like this. So that's just around an E minor chord, and then you're gonna slide up. This is actually on electric guitar too. Slides up to the 7th fret on the
low E string, then the open E. And then it does this. That's going to be sliding into the 7th fret of the low E again, over to 5 on the A, then the open A, then 3, 0 on the low E string. All right, so that takes us to the 3-minute and 41-second mark and solo number 2. Now this one is the one that he repeats the exact same way later on in the song, so we only have to do it here. Now this is a harmonized solo. I'm only going to teach really the main line, not the higher harmony part. And there's going to be a couple of parts when I'm doing it that I'm going to add. I'm going to kind of double up both harmony parts to kind of really at the end. And then of course on top of that we have another overdub, little higher guitar bends that are done in overdub. So it's really kind of like at least 3 guitars going on here, just lead guitar stuff going on here. So I'll talk about what's going on. We have that main harmony, and we have one going to. So that's the harmony, but I'm going to be doing the main one. And we're going to be working on that one mostly. And then on top of that, we obviously have those little overdubs. That kind of stuff going on, which I'll talk about as well. Not really possible to play that unless you have a couple guitar players in the band to play all of this, like 3 guitars at least. All right, and that's not even including the rhythm guitar stuff that's going on underneath this. So now, before I do the solo, let's look at the rhythm guitar stuff because there's a different chord progression underneath there. So this starts at the 3-minute and 41-second mark, and this is the chord progression that happens under solo number 2, the harmony guitar solo. So here we go. So that's going on underneath solo number 2. So we're going to start with this, the D major chord. Obviously this is on acoustic, but we're going to be playing it on electric here, so I don't have to switch back and forth. So we have this, the D major chord. And then you're going to make it a D sus4 chord by just adding the 3rd fret there on the high E string. And then back to the D. Then to the E minor chord. So that's going to be done twice, that chord progression. All right, so there it goes to back to a D major chord, transitioning to really the second half of the harmonized solo, which goes to a C. So C major chord. And as you hold this, they'll go down to a C major 7th, which means you just pick up the note that's on the B string, so you play open B with that chord, and then back to the C major chord. All the way to the ending of this part, which goes to a G major, to an F major bar chord. That's just a full bar at the 1st fret, 2nd fret on the G, 3rd fret on the D, and 3rd fret there on the A. And then back to the G major. You notice I'm doing the G major that has the open B string in it, not the 4 kind of figured G. It's the one with the open B in there. It's kind of closer to the album. And then, so it goes that G to F twice at the end. And then take it to an E minor, which is the bridge that's coming up after the solo there. So let me play the actual solo for you. So like I said before, I can only play one thing at a time, so I'm going to be doing the lower harmony part, and there's going to be a couple of parts at the very end of each line that I'm going to do both harmony parts together, just to kind of end it, to end the phrase. But I'm going to pretty much be teaching the lower harmony part. And then that little guitar overdub with those couple of bends there, I'll talk about those after the fact. So it looks like this. So I think you can see at the very end I added 2 notes instead of just 1. That's taking both harmony parts, putting together, because it just doesn't sound right at the end with one guitar without doing that, to me at least. All right, so let's start here with this bend at the 15th fret on the B string. Kind of a bend and release. And with that over it, which I'll talk about in a second. And then we have this. So that's, once again, picking the 15, and then into another bend, over to the 14th fret on the high E string, and then into a bend at the 15th fret on the B again, back down to the normal without the bend, back into a bend. So it's kind of just basically around those 2 notes, but with some bends there. Then you're going to repeat that same thing. All right, now after that, repeating that phrase twice, we get this next line. So that's just a bend at the 15 again, then play 15 without the bend, and then go 13, 12, 13. Then we're going to do a bend from there, then a bend at 15 again, and then back to the bend and release at the 13th fret, down to 12, and then now hammer back onto 13. So like this. And then into a bend again at 13 and 15, over to 14th fret on the high E string. And then we get to the kind of the ending part, which looks like this. So it's hitting the 12th fret a couple times on the B to start it. Into a half step bend at the 14th fret on the high E string. And then a whole step bend release at the 15th fret. And then come over to the 17th fret on the B string. It's going to be a half step bend release. And then here, I'm going to add the high harmony line to each, for each harmony part here. I'm just going to play them as a little double stop here. So that's the 13th fret there on the B and the 14th fret on the G. So look at this. And then here, it's going to go 12, 15, 12 on the B, and then back to that same melody. And same ending. Now at the very end of it, when it goes over to the bridge here, at the 4-minute 46-second marker, we're going to just play the 12th fret on the G and the 14th on the D. All right, so that takes us to the next section. So that's through solo 2. Oh, well, let's not skip everything here. We do have a harmony part, which I'm not going to do, but we do have this little, after this, right here. And then another one. So that's what's going on here. So that's an extra guitar. You need that, those are ringing out together. So you can kind of do them together like this. So then you have to continue it. So that's just doing a bend after the, a whole step bend at the 17th fret on the high E string and releasing. And then. So here, this high bend is where I'm thinking he might be using like a standard tune guitar or a 22 fret guitar, which I don't think he is, because this bend here is not, if you're at 21 frets, you have to bend up to a step and a half to that E, well in this case is a D, and then not release it all the way. So you can release it down to just a half step bend, from a step and a half to a half step bend. It almost sounds like he's bending from the 22nd fret up and back down. So in order to, so that would be if he tuned his guitar to standard, he could do this all 2 frets lower and it'd be easy. But so I'm not sure. There's a couple sections later on that do this as well that you just think, I think he might be using a standard tune guitar, but people will fight to the death about this. There's nothing really to say about it. You can do it on the detuned guitar and play the rest of the song like it should be played with a detuned guitar, but just little observations here they could be doing in the studio. But that's what's going on there. If you have 22 frets on your guitar, just grab the 22nd fret, bend it up a whole step, and then release. If you have a 21 fret guitar like me, it's going to be a lot more painful. It's going to be a step and a half bend, and then release it down to just a half step bend. You got to really use your ear to keep it in tune. And then the second time, it just kind of bends up, and then you hear him kind of do more 22nd fret bends or 21st fret bends later on. Kind of hear him kind of doing that over it. But the main harmony line is what we're really kind of focusing on. And if you want somebody to do that, they're just bending at the 17th fret, and then hopefully have a 22 fret guitar, bends at the 22 fret, 22nd fret. All right, so that is it. After there, at the 4-minute and 46-second mark, we have the bridge. Well, I call it a bridge. I don't know what they would call it, but it looks like this. So that's going to start, it's really kind of based around so that E minor 9 in the beginning. And you can just strum like the lower strings. Kind of hit the bottom 3 strings or bottom 4 strings. And then strum the top of the chord. So he kind of does that 8 times. So do that 8 times, and then we do this, which is a C major chord. It's kind of a modal thing. It's kind of a C Lydian thing here. So we're playing just a C major chord, and then what you do is you play a D major chord over this C. So to play that, I'm playing the my middle finger there at the 3rd fret of the A string, and I'm barring the 2nd fret across the top 3 strings, and I'm playing the 3rd fret there on the B. So the high E string is the 2nd fret, B string is the 3rd fret, the 2nd fret there on the G, and you can have the open D or just mute the D, doesn't matter. And then in the bass is that 3rd fret there on the. So this. Repeat that. Then he has a really dissonant chord, which is a G augmented chord. It happens, you hit it once. So that's going to be the 3rd fret on the low E, 5th fret there on the D. I'm muting the A string there, and then I'll play the 4th fret on the G, 4th fret there on the B. It's really a passing chord, real quick. There's more than a guitar going on, so this might be just kind of the overall harmony of the music with the keys and everything added to it too. So I think it's good to do it. So we have this G augmented, and then that goes to a B major chord with F sharp in the bass. So that's just a regular B major bar chord, so that's the 2nd fret there on the A, and then the 4th fret across the D, G, and the B. You can play that with this finger if you want. But you're gonna add the 2nd fret on the low E under it. So it goes, you hear that bass line. And then we do this little little arpeggiated line. So that starts out with just a regular B major. So you can play that B major chord. You pick the A and the D, and then hit the G and the B string. And then do the same thing really, but the low note is going to be the 3rd fret on the E string. So this. And then 2nd fret on the low E string, just hit that chord one more time, down to an open E. All right, so out of the bridge, we get to solo number 3. All right, so this solo happens at the 5 minute and 31 second mark of the song. Now this happens over the bridge chords for the most part. So it has that little E minor to E minor 9 vamp 8 times. And then it does that C Lydian thing, which is a C with a, then do a D with the C in the bass. You do that twice, that chord change 4 times. So it was that E minor, that done 8 times, and then this C to D with C in the bass done 4 times. And then back to the E minor, to the E minor 9, vamp 4 times. And then back to the C and D with C in the bass, just done 2 times. And then that same ending that was in the bridge before, that little augmented to the B with the F sharp in the bass, and then that same arpeggiated figure. So it's basically the chord progression underneath solo number 3 is kind of an extended version of the bridge. So there's nothing new there, it's just that you're playing some parts a little bit longer. All right, so let me play through the actual solo for you now, and then I'll show you how to play it note for note. So here we go. So some just really, really nice stuff in that one. So we're gonna start here with just a bend at the 15th fret on the B string. On the B string, and then you're gonna pick the 15th fret there on the B again, into a bend at the 17th fret on the high E string. All right, and then up a step and a half bend at the 19th fret on the high E string. You do that bend and pick it a few times at the top of the bend. That's the way it is. Then you release that bend and pull off 19 to 18, and then back to that 19. So we had this. And then you're going to end this first phrase by playing the 12th fret there on the B string, and then whole step bend release at the 15th on the high E. And then we have this. So that's going to be a double stop at the 14th fret across the G and the B. So you kind of go ahead and pull those two strings kind of downward toward the floor, and then pick them and release it down to the 12 on the G, and then 12 on the D string. Then come down to the, stay on the D string. And it's kind of a bend and release at the 7th fret there on the quick little half step bend and release. On the 7th fret, pull off to 5, and then pull off 7 to 5 again, and open E. From there we have this. All right, so that's gonna be sliding into the 15th fret there on the B, over to 14 on the high E string. And then this note, you might not think that that's in key, but that's the note he's pulling off from, which is the 18th fret there, pulling off to the 14th fret again. And then 12th fret a few times on the high E, slide up to 14, back down to 12, and then over to 12 on the B. So this. I didn't miss that open E string, did I? Pretty obvious, isn't it? All right, then we have this, basically, this next section. All right, so some really melodic playing there. So we're gonna start here with this, just hitting the 15th fret on the high E string and killing it real quick, and then a quick pull off from 15 to 12. All right, so, and then we have this. So that's 15 on the high E string, quick little bend up, into a whole step bend at the 15th fret on the B string. And then another bend at the 15, over to 12 on the high E string, and then kind of a bend and release at the 14th on the high E, over to 15 on the B, and then into another whole step bend there. So it is. From there we have this. So that lick is another bend to the 15 on the B, into the 12th fret on the high E string, and then a quick pull off from 15 to 12. And then a pre-bend at the 15th fret on the high E string, and release, so it is. And into a bend at the 15th fret again on the B string, so it is. Then the next phrase. So after this, after that bend, after this little, that we're gonna play 14 on the high E string, and then it's gonna quick half step bend, and then release that bend, or just kind of when you get to the top of the bend, mute it, and then play 14, 12, 14, 15, slide up to 17, and then pull off back to 15, and back to 17, into a bend of the 17th fret. So that whole section there. All right, from there we have this. All right, so that's just basically down here at the second fret on a G string. So you kind of do some pre-bends. Kind of bend it up, then pick it, and release it. And you do that kind of, and then over and over again. So it's all pre-bends. So when you're bending it up, it's always muted. And he's gonna add some little pinch harmonics in there, so just while he's picking it, just kind of dig in. And into that open E again, and then the 7th fret there on the G and the D. I'm sorry, G and the B string. And then come back up here and do some pull-offs, 15 to 12 again. Really setting up for the next phrase, which is kind of like, you just gotta do a quick pull-up between 15 and 12, then a few more. And then we have the next phrase. All right, so that kind of starts the same. So after the, so that much of it was the same as the first time we did this. We did that same phrase before after the pull-offs. Now from there, we're gonna do a little bit different. After you get that bend, you're gonna go up the high E string. And it's gonna go 14, 15, slide up to 17, and then a whole step bend. And then pick that bend again at the top. And we're gonna end the solo. So that's a half step bend and release to the 19th fret on the high E. And then a whole step bend and release to the 17th fret. And then over to the B string, whole step bend and release to the 20th. Pull off to 19, and then pick 19 with some Robert on it. Alrighty, so that takes care of solo number 3. Now we're at the 6 minute and 45 second mark. We only got a little over, almost a little over 10 minutes to go, guys, of the song, not the lesson. Of course, there's like almost 4 minutes of a keyboard solo, which there's nothing to do there, but we get a little bit of a break. Anyway, so this next verse is a little bit different. It sounds like he's still doing a, but he's actually not. He's doing just an E minor chord to a straight D major chord. So we have a, you hear that A added to it now. So as you know, it's going to a straight D, not just doing that. So we have the E minor to D, and that little vamp now 8 times. So after that, and do it around 8 times, you kind of build up on this E, and then it's going to end it with this. All right, right, so that's basically, after you, like I said, we kind of build up. You go to a C major chord, but it's got G in the bass. So if you know a C major chord, which hopefully you do, just take that bass note and move over to the 3rd fret on the low E instead, and then replace that note you picked up on the 5th string, or the A string of the 3rd fret, replace that note with your pinky. So you kind of hold that, and then we go back to this B major chord with F sharp in the bass that we did earlier, hit that twice, and then that same arpeggio in it. All right, so now we get to the 7-minute and 30-second mark, and this, to me, is kind of like a bridge variation. So we kind of had a variation of the verse just now. Now we kind of got a variation of the bridge. So this is 7-minute and 30-second mark, and it's based, instead of like any kind of E minor 9 or whatever, it's just based around kind of just the first 4 bars, really just an E minor chord, kind of vamping on an E minor chord. And then it kind of continues semi-close to the chords in a bridge. We don't do that augmented chord or anything, so a little bit more subdued ending, but it looks like this. That takes us to the keyboard section. So I'm just kind of vamping on an E minor chord for like 4 bars. And then we do that little C Lydian thing, which is that C major chord with D with C in the bass, done twice. Then what happens is we have that B major chord with the F sharp in the bass again, but the first time you hear it, it's actually a B sus4 chord, because he's gonna play add the 5th fret on the B string in front of it, so this. So you do that first, and then resolve that down to that regular B major with F sharp in the bass. And then that same little arpeggiated. And just end it with an E minor chord there that takes us to the keyboard section. So that's the 7-minute, 58-second mark. And it's all just kind of this keyboard stuff, which obviously I'm not going to cover because it's on keyboards and song's long enough, we've got enough guitar stuff to worry about anyway. So fast forward now to the 11-minute and 38-second mark in the song, and we get back to those original verse chords, on acoustic of course. The same things, and some electric guitar overdubs, like the 3rd time through those chords, you start here. These guys really kind of add in some overdubs there. You can just kind of follow the chords and just kind of pick across them, strum them, or whatever on the electric guitar there. And that takes us to solo number 4, which happens at the 13-minute and 25-second mark. So this is pretty much over the verse, those same verse chords that we just went back to. Of course, at the end, it's kind of just kind of an E minor chord at the end. There's a quick little E minor vamp at the very end of this solo. And then it kind of releases the D string, so you have an open D and make it kind of a E minor 7, and back to the E minor. All right, so that's the only difference. So it's pretty much the verse chorus, so that just kind of vamp on an E minor at the very end of the solo. All right, so let's take a look at the last solo that we have to actually learn here, because the 5th solo that we go straight into out of this solo is the same as the 2nd solo, so nothing new to learn there. So the last solo we have to learn here is solo number 4. This is at the 3-minute and 25-second mark in the song. Happens over the verse chord, so it looks like this. one's fun. So they're all fun. This is David Gilmour says the solos in Dogs and the solos in Get Comfortably Numb are his favorite solos that he's done. So that's saying quite a bit. All right, so we're gonna slide to the 14th fret on the high E string, and then step and a half bend. So gonna make it sound like the 17th fret, and then release it, and then a whole step bend at the 15th fret there on the B's, and then back to the 15th fret there on without the bend. Then a quick half step bend at the 14th fret on the G string, down to 12, back to 14, over to 14 on the D. All right, next phrase. So after, you're gonna play 14 now on the D, 14, then 11, 12 on the G. And here you're gonna start a kind of series of pull-offs. You're gonna pull off once from 12 to 11 on the G, then 4 times from 14 to 12 on the D. And then 3 times from 14 to 12 on the A. Slide down to 10, slide back up to 12, and then back down to 10. So it is. So we got this. Then. Now here we have, you'll see some people do that there. Right before you hear this bend, you hear a quick little double stop. And it's right here. It's these two notes. And once again, they're not quite in tune. So that kind of gives it away where he's doing that. So it's a quick little, the 14th fret there on the G and the B real quick. And then a step and a half bend at the 14th fret on the D string. All right, and then we go up. Now there, once again, if he's tuned to standard tuning, this is much easier to play, or if he has a 22 fret guitar, much easier to play. Who really knows? But we're gonna do it on the D standard 21 fret guitar, unfortunately. So 14, 15, slide to 17, back down to 15, then back to 17, up to 17, slide up to up to 19 now. Back to 17. Then here he sounds like he goes to the 22nd fret, or a half step bend at the 21st fret, which is very hard to get into. Then bend up to the E or the D, or whatever you want to call it. And then here, just gonna release it a half step, so it's a like that if you were just doing it on a 22 fret guitar. So it's kind of bending up a whole step and then just release it a half step if you're bending at the 22nd fret. If you have a guitar that does that, it'll sound more authentic actually if you do it there. So release to that half step bend there if you're at the 22nd fret, or to a whole step bend if you're at the 21st fret, and then you're gonna pull off, release that and pull off to 20 to 19. All right, then from there, after you do this pull off from 20 to 19, you start a series of descending pull offs. All right, so that's gonna start pulling off 19 to 17 on the high E, then 17 to 16 on the high E, then 16 to 14, then 14 to 12, then 12 to 11. That's what it is. Then we're going to move over to the B string. We're going to pull off 16 to 14, then 14 to 12, then 12 to 10, 10 to 9, and then 9 to 7. Then slide down to 5. Now, here's another reason why I think this might have, at least this one, the fourth solo, recorded in standard. Besides those crazy bends that makes much more sense to do in standard tuning. When he plays this note on the recording, it sounds like an open string. And that's an E. So it should be, it could be played with an open E. Obviously, if he's doing that, he's playing this in standard. I'll throw that out there too. It sounds like that one note, if you really sit down and analyze and transcribe this stuff like I do, you can hear that that's an open string. But we're going to continue where we're at here. So we have this. So when you slide down to 5, you pull off 9 to 7 and slide down to 5, and then go. So that's going to slide from over on the G string, 6 up to 8, back down to 6, and down to 4, pull off to 4. And then here we're going to start ascending. So we're going to do a little quick little trill between 4 and 6 on the G, slide up to 7, and then go 6, hammer on 7, slide up to 9, and then go 7, hammer on 9, slide up to 10, and then 9, hammer on 10, slide to 12. So with this. All right, and then this lick right here is a harmonized, what's going on is an augmented triad that's kind of harmonized, kind of descending and descending major seconds. Now, you can play that whole triad if you want. And it's not playable. So what I'm gonna do is just 2 notes of it. So you're gonna basically, this is recorded, obviously. And the other one. And the other one. But we can do 2 of those pretty easily on guitar and kind of come pretty close to it. So the combining 2 of those harmony lines, it would be the 21st fret there on the G and the B. Down to 19, and then down to 17. So it is. And then we're going to do the same thing now, starting at the 19th fret. So this is like, and then start the same lick again, you're 2 frets lower now. And then again from there. Keep shifting everything down 2 frets and just repeating. All the way till you get to the 3rd fret. So, and then when you get there, you're gonna slide 3 to 5 on the B. All right, so that all together sounds like this. And then we have the end of the solo. All right, so that's gonna be, you're gonna bend up the 4th fret there on the G. That's a step and a half, so you wanna sound like the 7th fret. And then hammer on 2 to 4 on the G, and then go over to the D string and do a trill between 2 and 4. Then 5th fret on the A, 2 on the D. And it's kind of a half step bend and release in the 4 on the D string, down to 2, and then a trill between 5 and 2 on the A string. And then slide up to 7 to end it. So all right, and then that goes, from there, it goes to solo number 5. This is the 14-minute 6-second mark. Same as solo 2. You can add those little high things. All right, so that takes us to the last verse in the song. I guess we can call this verse. This is a different riff that's used here. This is at the 15-minute 18-second mark. This, once again, is a harmonized guitar line. So a couple of them, one of them's going. that going on, and then on below that we have this. And that whole thing is done like 12 times. You can put those two together at least. There's other guitar things, you hear some kind of acoustic guitar stuff going on, but this is the main thing that's going on this riff, this part. So I'm gonna do those riffs and I'm gonna combine them so you can play most of that harmony riff on just one guitar part. So keep in mind, I'm taking single line parts and combining them. Just like that. So that's going to be the 7th fret there on the low E and the A. And then the 5th fret there on the A and the D. So this it's kind of a lead in, and then 7th fret on the A, 5th on the D. Then back down to that 5 on the A, 4 on the D. So this. Then come over to the 7th fret on the A and the low E, and then the 5 on the A and the A and the low E, and then back and do the same 2 chords again. So with this. And just repeat. Again. So you kind of repeat that like 12 times, and then right in the middle of it, at the end of the song, it just goes, instead of it just goes, takes us down to a C major chord with G in the bass, as we did earlier. And then that B major chord with F sharp in the bass, which we've done before. And then we're gonna end the song, yay, with so that's gonna be 2 on the A string, then 3, 2, 0 on the low E. Grab that E minor 9 chord and kind of hold it. Kind of strum across it. And we are done with Dogs. Wow, that is it's probably the longest song I've ever tried to tackle. I don't know if this will be the longest lesson because there's been very complex songs that I've done that have taken longer to teach, but this is probably the 17-minute song. Almost 4 minutes of it is keyboard solo, but still it's probably the longest song I've ever tackled. But I'm glad I was able to do it. I love Pink Floyd, I love David Gilmour, I love the song. And we finally have done a complete lesson of it. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you got through this, you absolutely love David Gilmour. Right on, I do too. So I'll see you guys again soon for GuitarLessons365.com.